Here is the mother of one of the hostages that was released.
Thank you for bringing my son to me, to us. I'm so excited that I could hug him today. We have a strong 20 hostages in Gaza, and we want a deal now. We want them to come back home as soon as possible. Thank you for the army. Thank you for the government. Thank you for everyone. Thank you to our
I'm so excited that we killed 200 Palestinians. Bro, are you crazy? Come on, dude. She's the mother of a hostage. What are you talking about? Of course she's going to say, I'm so glad that my son has returned home, and thank everyone that did, everyone that participated in that process. But even then, she's still saying we have to do a deal. Focus on what's important here. She's still saying, I hope that we can do a deal so that everyone can return.
Our people, to our people. Am Israel Chai.
Long live Israel.
I couldn't stop hugging him. I couldn't stop. And tomorrow is my birthday, so I got my present. Thank you.
She got a present tomorrow. It's a birthday.
The Israeli military has rescued 4 Israeli hostages alive from Gaza. 1 woman and 3 men were freed amid heavy airstrikes from 2 different locations in central Gaza. Noah Argamani, seen here, is among the 4. She and the others are said to be in stable condition. They've all been taken to hospitals in Israel for further medical examinations. Hamas kidnapped all of them from the Nova Music Festival during its terror attack on October 7th. A short time ago, an Israeli army spokesman had this to say about the rescue operation.
This morning at 11 a.m., Israeli Special Forces conducted complex.
Barak Ravidis found something to be mad about at the D.C. protest. Protesters near the White House expressed support for Hezbollah and Hamas military wing Al-Qassam brigades, who are designated as terrorist organizations by the U.S. government. Yeah, of course, he found something to get mad at in between. Isn't he in Israel right now? What's he doing?
Hostage rescue mission, and successfully rescued 4 of our hostages from Hamas captivity in Gaza. Noah Argamani, Almog Meir Jan, Shlomi Ziv, and Andrei Kozlov. They are back home in Israel. They are alive. They are well. They will undergo medical examination and will soon be reunited with their families in the hospital.
We're joined now by our correspondent in Jerusalem, Tanya Kramer. Tanya, good to see you. I imagine it's an incredibly emotional day for Israelis and especially for the families of the rescued hostages. How is this news being received within the country?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, this is an incredible, emotional day. There's a lot of joy. And also, you know, you have to understand Israel has been in agony.
Does the far left and far right have common ground in their hatred of Jews and Zionism? Are you stupid? The far left is comprised of all different ethnicities and backgrounds, including Jewish people. There is no hatred of Jews on the far left. The far right does not even hate Zionism. They just hate Jews. If you're talking about whichever kind of far right person you're talking about, there's plenty in the far right that love Zionism, hate Jews, but still love Zionism. There's a shit ton on the far right that claim that they hate Zionism, but they just hate Jews. They hate that Israel gets to have an ethno-state while they can't do their own little white ethno-state.
Over the hostages that are remaining in Gaza. And of course, this rescue operation carried out in broad daylight in Nuseirat, that is in central Gaza. Now, we are hearing from the military spokesperson there earlier, he gave some more details that this was in preparation for weeks, as he has said, with many different units involved. Those 4 hostages were kept in 2 different locations. They were extracted from there and then flown by helicopter to the hospital to the Sheba hospital in Tel Aviv, where they are now. And we're seeing here, of course, in the past hours, images from that hospital in on the Israeli channels. We've seen also Noa Agamani there. She was talking on the phone to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, we understand that they are all in a reasonably good health. They are undergoing, of course, more checks. They have been reunited with their families, but it's certainly a very, very important day here, because this week had started on Monday, actually, with the announcement by the Israeli military that 4 more hostages were presumed dead in Gaza. And now, a couple of days later, finally, some good news for the...
That's actually a great point, by the way. How'd they die? Who killed them, I wonder?
Family members and the relatives of those 4 hostages, that they were rescued now after almost 9 months in captivity.
Well, indeed, I imagine that Israelis have been hungry for some sort of good news. To date, just 3 other hostages have been rescued in more than 8 months of Israel's military operations in Gaza. Tanya, do you think today's rescue will somehow boost public support for the war and possibly even for Prime Minister Netanyahu himself?
Well, it might give him some respite from all the international and all the domestic pressure he has been under, especially in the past couple of days, because there is an agreement for...
While I despise Deutsche Welle's coverage on this, it's important to hear the unconditional dick riding of Israel's side, because they are correct in their analysis when they say Benjamin Netanyahu got a massive dub today, and the ceasefire negotiations, in my opinion, took a massive L, because that's all... Dude, Israelis have been so desperate to point to like any success out of the 9 months of death and destruction. And obviously internally, the 9 months of death and destruction is somewhat of a success in and of itself. They like that. There's plenty in Israel that do have a healthy appetite for this death and destruction and think that that's a dub in and of itself. But this isn't just that. This is now a justification for that death and destruction. This is now a way for them to say, this is why we've killed 36,000 people so far, to save these 4 lives. And you want to know the worst part about it, other than like obviously the unimaginable death and destruction? American media will go along with this narrative. I suspect they will use this as an example and be like, see, there it is, they did it, they did the damn thing. 70 hostages have been slaughtered by Israel because they've they've been treated as Palestinians functionally because they're in Gaza. Not only that, but also they will then immediately and quickly turn the crosshairs back. They will then quickly turn the crosshairs back to those who, like myself, will be very critical of this situation and say, oh, Hasan or others like Hasan are obviously upset that 4 hostages were released because they want all Israelis to be held hostage by Hamas. They want all Jews to be held hostage by Hamas. And not just myself. I'm using myself as a placeholder here, but like the media will quickly move back to the types of commentary that gets a lot of clicks that everyone is comfortable seeing and experiencing and analyzing.
For a ceasefire that also includes the release of hostages on the table, and both sides, Hamas and Israel, have so far not really agreed to this latest proposal, and he has been under a lot of pressure because publicly, I mean, a majority, you could say, of the Israeli public wants to see that this agreement is being done, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is also under pressure from his own cabinet, and he himself has kept on saying that only maximum pressure will bring the results. So this is kind of, supporting him in his military strategy to say there will be no end to this war. But we also have heard from Benny Gantz, the former defense minister, who's a member of the war cabinet. He was actually supposedly giving a press conference tonight, and was expected that he might actually quit the war cabinet. That press conference has now been postponed. So you could say maybe this pressure will, at least for the time being, be a bit less. But still, there are 120 hostages still being held in Gaza, and these rescue missions have been very rare. So I think, the reading here in Israel is at least that there needs to
New York Times pulled their article stating 200 plus Palestinians have been killed.
Be some kind of agreement to bring all these hostages back home.
Well, meanwhile,
Let's see. I have the Washington Post one up here still. Let's see if they change it. No, their title is still the same. They updated 42 minutes ago. You can be be happy for the rescued hostages while simultaneously being incredibly sad anger for the loss of Palestinian lives as a result. Yeah, the thing is, for me, there is another way to release these hostages without a single Palestinian child being murdered. That's the issue. Do you understand? That's the major issue here. It's not like there wasn't an alternative plan on the table that the US media, alongside the Biden campaign, wasn't it worth it to save those 4 hostages? No, what? Are you fucking stupid? You think there's a planet where, not this one, but another one, where I would agree with killing 200 plus people? What? This has got to be a top of the hour ad break debate or something, right? There's no way this person is being serious. Yeah, no, I already ran it, bro. I already ran it, chatter. That was a bad bait. The reason why I haven't been serving, or I've been serving the ads but not talking about it, because, you know, it's a serious issue. Anyway, how many people are out there mistaking the death toll of civilians for armed combatants? I don't think people are mistaking that. Also important to mention that the released hostage Tommy Metzger, married 60 years to Yoram Metzger, just found out her last words with her husband was at a Hamas tunnel. But Tommy isn't an impressionable 19-year-old soldier. She was outwardly critical of the right-wing government, so no call from Bibi and Herzog to her, obviously. Oh yeah, I know. I covered this already. I showed this already. Anyway.
While Hamas health authorities say a large number of people were killed amid these heavy airstrikes to rescue the hostages. I mean, the area where this operation took place in central Gaza is the site of a refugee camp. Tanya, what do we know about the situation there? After
5 minutes and 50 seconds, we finally asked the question in the most unnuanced way possible. Well, this was the site of a refugee camp. How do we feel about this?
Well, absolutely. When this news broke, I mean, first that, the Israeli army said they're carrying out intensive airstrikes, and an intensive operation in Nuseirat refugee camp. Now, this is in central Gaza. This is also an area where a lot of Palestinians that had fled or had been ordered to go south by the military had now gone back because of the offensive taking place in Rafah. It's a very crowded area. And after 9 months of war, we all know the situation in Gaza is extremely difficult for civilians. Now we're hearing that there were reports of many injured and killed being taken into the hospital. One of the few hospitals that's actually still somehow working in Deir al-Balach, which is south of Nuseirat. And the Ministry of Health there said that at least 55 people were killed. It doesn't distinguish between militants and civilians, but there's also a lot of footage out on social media of the devastating footage, I have to say, about the aftermath of that strike, that it's showing that now hospitals there are struggling with...
Yeah, this is Deutsche Welle, so it is literally probably one of the most woke outlets in Germany, by the way. With DW News being one of the only, I was even asking this question in Germany. Like, if you want to understand the German situation, understand that we're currently watching like one of the more left-wing coverages in Germany, specifically because this is also supposed to be like Western facing. Yeah, Germany's out of fucking control, dude. They are insane when it comes to Israel.
With the influx of injured. And of course, these are very contrasting pictures that we are seeing that coming out of Gaza with those devastating scenes once again. And of course, the joy and, the development, this positive development, bringing those 4 hostages home that we are seeing in Israel.
DW's time.
It's not the same everywhere in Europe. It's not, especially because Channel 4 exists, for example. As much as I shit on the Oibrovs, like Channel 4 is probably one of the best resources in the Western world for things that are happening in both the occupied Palestinian territories in the West Bank and things that are happening in Gaza as well. They have been consistently good. France and Germany are the worst. The rest of Europe is bad, but more or less because they're following the interests of capital. No, I mean, even France is not as bad as Germany. But the irony is, of course, there's constant polling happening in Germany. And the thing is like, regardless of the constant propaganda from German television, I believe there's still a not insignificant number of German citizens that are pro ceasefire. So like the majority of Germans, just like the rest of the world, are not exactly aligned with their governments on their seemingly endless mission to eradicate all Palestinian lives in the Gaza Strip.
Red line. Heidi Zoe Castro joins me now live from the protest site in Washington, D.C. Take us with you, Heidi. What's going on around you?
Layla, there's so much going on around me. I'm surrounded by a few thousand protesters who are from here in Washington as well as from across the country. They've been planning to come here today to unfurl this symbolic red line that is now surrounding the White House. It actually stretches some 3+ kilometers, and you can see the people wearing red as well in symbolism of the red line that they say that President Joe Biden of the United States has put repeatedly on Israel not to invade Rafah, not to incur more civilian losses among Palestinians, and yet they say again and again that red line has been allowed to be crossed. And I actually want to bring one of our guests. This is Sammy. Very nice to meet you, Sammy Al-Kaifi. You came from New York City, third time here protesting. Why continue when so far Joe Biden has not budged on this?
We can't stop. We got to just keep coming out till they stop the war on Gaza. There's no way to stop. We just got to keep doing what we're doing every day.
Describe what's happening here today, what you hope to be communicating to the White House behind us.
For him to stop the war. That's what we're here for. ASAP, as soon as possible.
Yeah, you've seen the images we all have of the suffering. How does that impact you personally?
Listen, I got my own kids. I can't describe the feeling, you know, having to lose somebody from your family. That's all I can say. It's hard. It's hard. I'm sorry for it.
No, not at all.
It's just you're feeling your emotions. You can't hold it sometimes, you know. So.
I've seen this a lot of emotion not just from you, but from so many protesters, and particularly just today, reports of now 200+ civilians killed in Gaza, and yet President Biden, when speaking on this earlier in the day, he congratulated Israel for its successful, he said, operation in getting back those captives. He didn't mention the loss of life in Gaza. How do you respond to that?
President Biden don't want to look bad in the face of Israel. You understand? He can't, because they fundraise his elections. You know, they provide funds for him to go out and people to vote for him. At the same time, I don't think these young generation out here will vote for him. My vote would not be for him for sure.
What do you want him to do specifically? You said you want him to stop the war. What can the U.S. do?
U.S. is the one that gave Israel the green light to go in Gaza. So they have the power to do the same thing and stop the war if they really want to. You understand? But they just, I guess, it's a game that they playing. You know, they blaming each other. You know, America say, okay, stop the war. Then Israel still continues the war. So it's like they're doing the opposite of what he says. But behind closed door, I think they're all on the same page.
You said you brought your wife and your children here today. This is a moment, a pivotal moment in history. What do you hope they take away from this?
Listen, I mean, I brought my kids to see what life is all about and the struggle that everybody got to go through every day. You know, and this is reality. You know, it's not Hollywood. This is real thing that's happening right now in the world. You know, where children are dying, and they need to see that. You know, they probably not see it here in America, but outside America, it's really this. It happens all the time. It happens all the time, all over the world.
And to not look away. Thank you so much. And there you have it. This is the same sentiment that I've been hearing over and over again, not only from Sammy, but also from younger voters, from older voters, from all walks of life, all trying to communicate this message.
Not voting Joe Biden is voting for the other side. Polite Pineapple, you should definitely, instead of doing that, immediately demand that the Biden administration capitulate to the reasonable demands that many of these people are making in key states.
Message to the Joe Biden White House that the U.S. must be more forceful in having Israel stop its genocide in Gaza.
Heidi, a very emotive issue there. Thank you so much for bringing us that. I greatly appreciate it.
Stronger.
Don't you think every decent country who's loyal to its people would do all of its, what the fuck? Is this some Nazi shit? Would all of its bring its hostages back from a terror organization, even if there are consequences of killing 200 people, including a lot of Hamas members who are choosing to hold these poor hostages besides civilian Palestinians? I mean, there are literally Israeli prisons full of Palestinians in them. Some of them are in civilian areas as well. I don't think you would have that same exact energy if roles were reversed. You wouldn't have that energy at all. And you want to know how I know you wouldn't have that energy? You're currently justifying the death of 200 plus Palestinians in an effort to extract 4 hostages, which you could have fucking extracted through a ceasefire negotiation, but that wouldn't have meant continuing the bloody campaign. That's how I know the little amount of emphasis you put on Palestinian lives and the high value that you place upon the Israeli lives. You value Israeli lives to a much greater extent than you value Palestinian lives. That's it. 1 to 50 to be exact.
Dr. Abdel Fattah was finally able to return about 2 weeks ago, and he's here today to speak to us.
Status quo is live on the ground in Los Angeles. I googled Kahanis and saw JDL. Holy insta-cooked. Yes, JDL is the Jewish Defense League. They're white power, but like Jewish power, which is ironic because that happens to be the Kahanis party, or at least the party led by a Kahanis, the Jewish Power Party. How interesting. JDL is the Jewish Defense League, and the Jewish Power Party is Itamar Ben-Gvir's party. Here's an Apple reply to Biana Ru's tweet. This is exactly the kind of cynical, racist, genocide laundering we can expect. Israel's rejected multiple deals that could have seen hostages return with no casualties, but instead has chosen a path of total carnage backed by the US. Yeah, this is like a phenomenal way to understand what Western media is going to do, because the dumbest person is doing propaganda for them. If you want to know what the dumbest person you know is probably going to, what the dumbest person you know who is like really, really interested in getting you to shut the up about Israel in times when Israel is like doing senseless baby murder on a regular frequency and will never stop chirping now that like they finally extracted 4 fucking hostages. That's what they're going to be saying. Same with the people with the surname Haddad like me. Yeah, isn't that literally isn't that the Bella Gigi? Isn't that their actual last name? I thought instead of Hadid it was Haddad, right? And Hadid is like Western-fied version. Okay. No. Fascist Pigs Canadian edition. So, here, we'll look at the peer stuff in a second. We'll cover that aspect of it too. I'm not entirely certain, but a U.S. official told Barak Ravid that the U.S. hostages cell in Israel supported the effort to rescue the 4 hostages. The extent of their rescue and the extent of their support, I do not know. But here, moments of the Israeli attack and the relentless shelling of the Al-Nusayrat refugee camp unfolded. Israeli occupation forces, accompanied by American forces, snuck into the camp inside a humanitarian aid truck. Now, I don't know if this is like, this isn't verified. I will repeat, this is not verified. No, Hadid is an Arabic family name. Haddad is different. Hadid means iron or metal. Haddad means blacksmith. Okay, thank you. The extent of U.S. involvement could simply mean U.S. giving intelligence, or it could mean that they Trojan horsed it, but probably not. The United States provided support for the successful Israeli security forces raid that rescued 4 living hostages from captivity in Gaza on Saturday, 2 U.S. officials confirmed. In a statement issued by the White House, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan congratulated Israeli security forces. CBS News learned on Saturday that the U.S. role came mainly in the form of intelligence support. 2 U.S. officials confirmed that, but declined to share sensitive details regarding the operation. 1 Israeli special operator lost his life in the rescue mission, and nearly 100 Palestinians were killed. The Biden administration has had a major effort underway since October 7, providing support to Israel on hostage issues, including diplomatic, intelligence, and at times military support. The U.S. has previously acknowledged providing overhead surveillance support to help locate hostages. Video circulating online Saturday shows an IDF helicopter taking off from the beach with the U.S. pier in the backdrop. 2 U.S. officials told CBS News that the U.S. pier was not used in the IDF operation. It is offshore to assist delivery of humanitarian aid. A U.S. official explained that the helicopter landed south of the facility on a beach, but not within the cordoned area of the pier. Here's the video that everyone is talking about. There's a video circulating on Hebrew social media claiming that a helicopter rescued 4 captives from central Gaza on Saturday, confirming Israel's use of the American temporary pier. If they didn't take hostages, they wouldn't need to rescue them. W Biden. Yeah, dude. Real W. Real big W, dude. Only 200 killed. Big W. You know you can make that exact same argument against Israel, right? Obviously, you would never make that argument against Israel because you're pro-Israel, but like it's the notion that you have to recognize why October 7 happened to begin with, or why hostages were taken to begin with. It's a very silly way to go about it. And if you are to ask that question, you then come to the recognition that Hamas and the entirety of the Palestinian resistance front that collaborated, and including but not limited to atrocious actions that happened on October 7 in their hands against the civilian population of Israelis, on top of the Israeli occupying force bases that they targeted, their percentages for civilian casualties to enemy combatants straight up is infinitely more moral and more successful than what Israel has done so far. But of course, you don't make this calculation. You don't even give the dignity to the Palestinians to do a moral equivalence between a ascetic resistance front against the 75-year military occupation that started with mass ethnic displacement and an ethnic cleansing campaign in the form of the Nakba. You can't even put these two on the same moral playing field, even though one is a resistance born out of a necessity to resist an apartheid occupation. So the notion that those 200 would still be alive if they didn't take hostages is unimaginably cruel. It is not one that I say towards Israelis when we discuss October 7. You know, do you understand? Do you have an answer for me, or are you just going to chirp at chatters? The rescue mission that brought back these 4 hostages is considered one of the most complex military operations. By the way, have you seen the #Nova Party movie from the 7th of October? Can you please show it on stream, and not only the pro-Palestine side? Brother, I don't know if you understand. I can't show that on stream because there's so much death and destruction. Just like I don't show all of the Israeli murders of Palestinians on stream. Okay, it just sucks for your cause, I guess, that there's an infinite more number of cruelty and death and destruction on the Palestinian front than the Israeli front. Oh, it was so complex, dude. It was so complex. Yeah, the complexities are mind-boggling with 200 plus Palestinians dead. Anyway, Israel used the US-built humanitarian aid pier. I don't know how valid this is. Okay, to sneak in a unit of Israeli soldiers and reportedly American soldiers. The soldiers boarded the humanitarian aid truck and drove to the Nusayrat refugee camp. Once inside, they were discovered by Palestinians, which resulted in nonstop Israeli aerial bombardment and the soldiers opening fire inside the central market, killing over 210 Palestinians and injuring hundreds. The humanitarian pier gets exposed to be an occupation, assassination, and massacre pier. I don't know how valid this is. Yeah, this video just shows the helicopter landing in Israel, but 3 other hostages released were rescued by helicopters too, so I wouldn't call it confirmation. Yeah, and no, the Israeli media report that you think is confirming it isn't confirming it. We looked at that video earlier today, and chatters who speak Hebrew said that in the report, it's not a military person that's confirming it as an operation, but instead in the report, they're saying Palestinian reporting claims that Israel hid inside of humanitarian aid trucks, Israeli troops. Saying the piers for aid is like saying Russia bombed Nord Stream. No, the pier is just for PR. That's my assessment. A lot of people have been like, oh, they're using the pier to like sneak in American weapons. And to them, I always say, why would they need the pier for that? Oh, they're using the pier to sneak in American soldiers. Like, why don't they just... First of all, there are already a shit ton of American citizens in the IDF serving right now that are operating inside of Gaza doing war crimes. There's no reason for any kind of mystery here. They don't have to be shrouded in secrecy. Israel itself is the military base. Israel as a nation state is the American forward operating base. The fuck are we talking about? They don't need to build a goddamn dinky to on the other side of Gaza that's out in the fucking open. Like, they're literally shipping weapons every day openly. In any case, I don't know. It could be that could be a thing that they did. I'm simply stating that they don't necessarily have to use the pier for such a thing. Oh, this is the only video that shows that it might be humanitarian aid trucks. Israeli soldiers used a humanitarian aid truck and a civilian car to sneak into central Gaza and execute today's operation that butchered over 215 Gazans and released 4 hostages. Then they escaped through Biden's humanitarian pier, knowing it won't be targeted by Hamas. Here's the truck. Followed by tanks. There's a better angle and a longer vid. So design a special forces enter the central Gaza Strip, an aid bus, and a relief organization car. What's the point of the truck for cover if there's tanks behind it? Maybe it's to not have it be fired upon by Hamas. Like, oh, it's just aid. They're just bringing aid in. Those are APCs, not tanks. Yes, dude, tanks. APCs, armored personnel carriers.
طلع سيارة كمان، سيارة المجدلاوي. المجدلاوي اللي بيلعب بكاز من عند أبو عرب.
It's their exit, not entry, I believe. Does this truck look the same as the one parked on the pier vid in the heli? I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of this, okay?
سيارة المجدلاوي تبع اللي بيلعب بكاز عبد. أكيد اتفرج جيب ماجد. أنا شايفه
34 MKD 50. Thank you for the 50 gift the subs.
اتفرج. بس
Improperly using symbols of humanitarian aid organization is a war crime known as perfidy. Yeah. You know what else is a war crime? Dressing up as a doctor to do an assault on a hospital on a person who is like completely out of combat because they're in a hospital bed. And yet Israel did all of those. That was the war crime bingo. And that wasn't even in Gaza. That was in the West Bank, by the way. Occupied territory. Israel's a belligerent occupier in that situation, just like in Gaza. They killed a dude in a hospital bed. And they did that while dressing up as civilians. That was months ago. That was 100% real, by the way. That did happen. Brianna Wu defended that as well back in the day. Most moral army, by the way.